What's going on YouTube? My name is Venator, and in today's video we are going to go over all things combat regarding the Deinosuchus. The combat guide has been by far the most requested topic since I started this channel back in January. We are going to talk about a lot of different aspects to Deino combat, so if you're just looking for one thing in particular, it will be chaptered down below. And if you guys find this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. But before we get into the combat, one very important tip I have and that I recommend to anyone playing Deino is you go into your settings, go to controls, and then axis, and then rebind the move down button to a button on your mouse if you can. This is so useful when you are fighting because changing elevations is one of, if not the best way to avoid bites. The first thing we are going to talk about are the combat mechanics from fresh spawn to 6 tons. The majority of combat during this time in your growth will almost be entirely grab based. This means the deciding factor in fighting is very straightforward. Whoever is bigger will win. Now yes, some fights if you are both similar in weight will still be decided by bites, but even then, most of the time the bigger Deino will win due to the advantage in bite force and health. And for those who don't know, a Deino can grab anything in water up to 75% of its weight. This makes it entirely possible to win 1v2s if you have the size advantage. Here, as you can see, I was on the verge of starvation, and I had no choice but to go for these guys. Typically, you never want to put yourself into a 1v2 for obvious reasons. But if you find yourself in this situation, they are doable with a size advantage like I have here. In this fight, I started out with bites because I was not 100% sure if I could grab them, and to be honest, I was hoping one of them would run and try and save themselves. But these guys weren't bailing on each other, so I decided to try grab, and lucky for me, I was big enough. At this point, I knew I had a distinct advantage. Grabbing one of them and taking them to deeper water completely drained this guy of his stamina, which allowed me to outmaneuver and focus him with bites. Some people are probably wondering, how am I gliding in circles around this guy? If you tap shift while holding down the go down button that I hope you just rebound to your mouse, it allows you to stay on the bottom and push off the ground, moving much faster than most people realize when they are on the bottom fighting. And after killing the first one, at that point the fight was over, but his friend wasn't giving up, so another grab, and then that's a successful 1v2, albeit not on full growns. But in this example, I thought I could grab this guy, and I was completely wrong on that. I got stunned. But lucky for me, he could tell I was larger, and he tried to run, which gave me the chance to get a good lead on bites, and eventually win the fight. His partner was small enough where I knew I only had to survive the bigger one, and then I could easily grab and drown him if he decided to stick around. Which he did. And you know what? Mad respect to these guys for sticking with their partners. A lot of times people will try and hide and survive if they think the fight is going south. But these guys stuck together and lived and died with each other, and I have nothing but respect for that. And yes, having my night vision on certainly would have helped me in this fight. But this guy had a white skin, and I was very concerned on winning this fight and securing a meal that I just completely forgot to turn it on. But after I killed him, I realized I could not see his partner, and it kicked in and I got the grab. The next thing we are going to talk about are damage mutations. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen or heard other players say you have to take damage mutations, and that if you don't, you will lose every fight to another Deino that has them. So I decided to do some testing just to find out how helpful damage mutations actually are. For the test, I wanted to see how many headshots it takes to kill with no damage mutation, only 2, Hemomania and Accelerated Prey Drive, because these aren't slot 2 exclusive like Hypermetabolic. Then, with all 3, and finally, only Hypermetabolic Inundation. And honestly, I was a little surprised by the results. With no damage mutations, it takes 11 headshots, but regardless if you take all of them, 2 of them, or just hypermetabolic, it only takes 10 headshots either way. Now these results can vary because servers can change the values for these. For example, I mainly play on petites, but these damage mutations have their values reduced on that server. but say on a server geared for PvP, these values can be buffed, making them more useful. Just depends where you're playing. I only tested this for a short time, and I did not go all the way down to testing body shots, because the advantage you get, well, it can change during a fight, for better or worse. Because once your health falls under 50%, you start losing bite force. So any advantage that you have can be nullified if you get ambushed or simply get out traded early. I have always been under the impression that damage mutations help, but aren't necessarily the end-all be-all when it comes to fighting. And to prove it, while we were on the deathmatch server testing, my friend and I decided to have a little 1v1 for fun. He had the full damage build with all 3 mutations, while I had none. It is oftentimes very difficult to tell how you are doing in a fight health-wise, especially compared to your opponent. In this fight, I felt like I played pretty sloppy, but even without the damage mutations, I was still able to come out on top, and my friend was genuinely surprised. It just goes to show that no matter how down or bad you feel like you are playing, never give up and just keep trying to land those hits. Keeping your composure in a fight can be the difference between life and death. Another common misconception that I hear is that alt bites do more damage than normal bites. This is not true. However, the bite speed is faster. So when you are fighting on land in a spam fight, alt biting is definitely the way to go. Here, this guy got the first bite on me, but I was able to come out on top because he was not alt biting. Now these kinds of fights are by far my least favorite, because the majority of the time it comes down to who hits first unless your opponent is only doing normal bites. And regardless if you win, you were stuck on red health and healing for the next half hour, just hoping someone doesn't stumble along and finish you off. Now that we are clear on damage mutations and alt biting, we are going to talk about the true key to combat and winning fights, and it all comes down to headshots and out trading bites. If you land more headshots and body shots, especially early on in the fight, you will win the majority of your fights. Landing early headshots is so important because once you go under 50% health, you start losing bite force. So getting ahead early is the difference between life and death, at least in my experience. Another important aspect to fighting is dodging bites. The most popular method for this is head faking, which is very straightforward. You act like you are going in for a bite, then at the last second, swing your head away, and hopefully you bait them into biting so that you then can swing back in and land a headshot. Another popular method is to put yourself in a position where they bite your tail, as the tail hitbox takes reduced damage, and then you use your alt bite to swing around and land a headshot. But this method is pretty predictable and can often lead to you taking a headshot, so be sure you don't spam it in a fight. In this fight, my partner unfortunately went down early. The majority of the time, that means it's an easy win for them and a quick death for me. But I played well early in the fight and avoided taking a lot of damage, which gave me a fighting chance. I kept my composure and just kept trying to land headshots and body shots. After dropping one of them, I knew I had a chance and sure enough, pulled it off. Now we are going to talk strategy and what not to do. 1v1s are fairly straightforward. You want to be the one getting the first bite, and it's personal preference on whether or not you are in the water or on land. As you saw here, I completely botched the ambush part, and missed the first headshot. That's why I personally like to fight in the water, because it gives me the best chance to recover in a fight, especially like when you miss the first headshot, as I did. It's also great because if you maneuver well, you can end up not taking too much damage if you win the fight. Here, my maneuvering wasn't the best, but I still did well, and I ended up winning the fight and finishing on orange health, which is always a win in my book. Now on to what you do not want to do in a 1v1. This guy had just made the walk from ocean, and was more than likely hoping this pond was empty, and unfortunately for him, I did not feel like sharing this hunting spot. As you all know, West Rail Pond is very small, and sometimes meals can be few and far between, so I set up an ambush and went on the attack. But this guy had no intention of fighting and went straight into escape mode. And I get it. Growing a Deino takes a long time, and it is so frustrating when you get killed. One of the hardest parts of Deino is learning to fight, because you're going to die a lot. That is just the nature of the game, and if you're going to go to one of the prime hunting spots or hot spots, you have to be prepared to fight for it. As far as 1v2s go, I personally have never been able to pull off a true 1v2. I've won several times after losing my partners, and have won a few when I'm fighting small dinos that you can grab like I showed you earlier. But winning a true 1v2 is extremely difficult. This is the closest I've came. I logged into Westrail, saw another dino, and immediately went on the attack. My strategy for a 1v2 if you find yourself in this situation is to first run or hide if you can. But being in Westrail Pond, I knew I had to fight. So if you have to fight, try to focus one down. I generally accept that I'm probably dead anyway and just try to take one with me. But if you can kill one without taking too much damage, it gives you a small chance at killing the second. And in this fight, I felt like I did a very good job at focusing the first guy early. I got a lot of early shots on him, and I could tell he was more focused on saving himself and hoping that his friend would kill me first. But where I messed up was after getting the first dino down, I lost my composure and I got way too aggressive. I fell into a turn fight and completely forgot to use my surroundings to my advantage. Turn fights are okay if you are on equal health, but most of the time, trading hits around a 1-to-1 ratio is not going to work out so well, especially since I knew I was on lower health. I should have done a better job at disengaging, creating distance, and trying to win the single bite exchanges. But that is what Deino is, and this game in general is all about. Learning from every fight what you can and applying that down the road. You know, I haven't had a true 1v2 as a full grown Deino in a long time, and this was a good test, and just as I remember, it is almost impossible to win. I went into it knowing that I was probably going to die, but that's okay, because everyone eventually dies, no matter how good they are. When it comes to 2v2s, I'm sure a lot of people have their own strategies, but what works the best for myself and the guys I run with is to try and focus one Deino out and then kill the second. This especially works well if one of them has flashy colors that stand out, but if they both look similar or have darker colors, it can be tough to distinguish. So at that point, we will typically fall back to just trying to get headshots in where we can and avoid biting each other. A lot of the time, especially if we're in VC, we will try to enter and exit the fight at the same times, trying to win the headshot race and not fall into the trap of circle fights. Here, my friend and I logged into Westrail and we found another pair already occupying the pond. Naturally, we did not want to leave, but with the sandstorm going on and visibility being low, we just simply had to do the best we could at winning the bite exchange. Focus when we could, and most importantly, try not to bite each other, which I will admit, it happens a lot more than you would think. After killing the first one, I tried to disengage from the fight and let my partner finish him, but this guy was determined to at least to try and get one of us, so I had to turn back around and finish him off myself. Another strategy for 2v2s is essentially to make the fight into two 1v1s, and each person pick their target. I mainly only do this if you are ambushing your targets, but this is a risky strategy because if things go wrong, it can quickly turn into a 1v2, or in this case, you have to go fight a second Deino without knowing how low your partner got their health. But one of the positives for this strategy is that it really helps negate the chances of biting your own teammate. And I'll admit that happens a lot. You know, when you're fighting in the darkness and it's four blobs swimming around in a circle, chances are you're gonna bite each other a little bit. And this really helps both of you survive the fight if you play it correctly. But unfortunately here, I won my fight and my partner went down. Now, lucky for me, the guy he was fighting had a very predictable strategy as he just kept slinging the alt bites. Like I said earlier, you can see the alt bites coming from a long ways off. This allowed me to just stay on his tail and keep getting body shots and headshots and eventually winning the fight. And as a little bonus, after this fight, two other Deinos heard the commotion and came down to kill the winners. But I will show you guys the escape. As most people don't know, you can go down the second waterfall as you're leaving water access. This can be extremely useful for scenarios like this, or if you just need to escape in general. A lot of people think you have to walk around it, but you don't. Now for the most part, everyone knows you can go down the first waterfall, but once you get to this second waterfall, most people are under the impression that you have to walk around this one. But you can just simply walk down the left side, and there is a small ledge that your Deino will land on. And as you can see, I was really low on health and I took no damage from that. This makes a great escape route for leaving water access. I have not played with anybody else that knows this spot, and to be completely honest, I debated on whether sharing this with you guys or not, but more than likely it'll probably get changed in a future update, so enjoy it while you can. Now, with all of that being said, and I'm sure this will ruffle some people's feathers, but my single, and in my opinion, the most important thing when it comes to Deino fighting is, don't take fair fights. Now what do I mean by this? Well, the Isle is not an honor-based PvP game. It is a survival game. I play to win and survive, and I don't worry about how it looks. I always try to ambush my target, and if I'm going to be playing in a hotspot, I try to play with a partner because I would rather guarantee that the enemy croc is killed rather than fight in a fair 1v1 and risk death or being left on red health and being vulnerable for the next hour while I try to heal up in a hotspot like I do in Highlands right here. After all, the Deino is an ambush predator, and getting that first headshot is so important. Like I've already said numerous times, if you can get the first bite in and secure the first kill in a 2v2, then you're almost guaranteed to win. Now yes, I understand. A lot of people think ambushing a solo as a duo is scummy, but that's the nature of the game. And if you don't want to get jumped by a duo as a solo, well, I'm sorry, but there is a Discord for the game and it's pretty easy to find a partner. I have found numerous people to play with on the Discord. Another very important aspect to combat is do not sit and heal exposed immediately following a fight. This guy, he was sitting up on the shore and he was just healing. As you can see, there was a dead Deino next to him that he had just killed. So I don't know what the guy's health is, but for me and my partner who had just logged in, he was an easy target. And honestly, he didn't try and put up much of a fight. I hope this guy learned from it. If I'm gonna sit and heal, I always try and go find a bush on the side of the lake because, well, you're not gonna be spotted near as easily. Now it does still happen, but as I've said before, that is the nature of Deino gameplay. Another aspect you need to consider, and I always find myself forgetting this, is if you're playing in a spot like Highlands, play around your partner. This guy was sitting up alone healing and was obviously not in voice chat with whoever he was playing with. We decided, you know what, we got time to pair up, but because he called for help, we knew that there was a second Deino in the lake. So we went back down to the bottom and waited. And sure enough, a couple minutes later, he showed back up. And it was clear that he hadn't even seen his partner's message because he swam up with a corpse and immediately went to eating. He didn't even notice that the guy he was paired with was dead. Unfortunately for him, this fight was over before it even began. And to emphasize my point about playing with my partner, in this clip, I was the ambushee. This guy caught me completely off guard. I didn't even know what hit me. I thought we had the lake completely to ourselves, but this guy had apparently logged in right under our noses and he went on the attack. But little did he know, I had a partner. And because I was close to my partner, as soon as I realized I was starting to lose the fight, I was able to disengage and get back to my partner. Now, people can call me a coward if they want for not taking this 1v1, but as I said earlier, I care about surviving. Losing a Deino that you worked hard to grow is not a great feeling, and this is what the game is all about. He didn't know I had a partner, he didn't scout the lake, he didn't take the time to make sure that this engagement was going to go his way, and he paid the price for it. Also, another tip, when you're playing in Highlands and fighting on the bottom of the lake, as you can tell, it's very difficult to see. We were having a tough time to track him, and in the recording, it definitely looks a lot darker, but I highly recommend that you turn your gamma up. Turning it up just a little bit can really make the game a lot better, especially playing at night. But not all engagements go how you wish. Right here, I had been watching these guys for a while, and I had the chance to come up and get some early headshots, but my partner was away in the lake. So, I waited on him, and that turned out to be a mistake. You never know how the tides can turn in a fight, and this fight is a prime example of that. I hope you all learned something from this guide and helps you be successful in all of your future Deino endeavors. But I wanted to end on this clip and make one thing very clear. I am not a PvP god, and I lose plenty of fights. Everyone does. And if anybody tells you differently, well, then they're a liar. And I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that will probably disagree with me, and that's okay. This guide is not the end-all be-all for Deino fighting. It's just simply how I approach the combat and what I believe gives me the best chance at winning. But the harsh truth is, you don't win every single time. And whether it be your own fault, the other person outplayed you, or sometimes the game just bugs out. There was a time where I dashed and disconnected, and for those of you who don't know, that's a bug in the game. And while extremely frustrating, it happens, and it happens to everyone. No one is exclusive from dying in this game. And that concludes my Deinosuchus Combat Guide. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something. See you all next time, and happy hunting.